I felt like the only thing I wanted was to return to the woman that I loved and my dogs who show me unconditional love. The whole thing was love. In my first moment in death, the only thought was love. And I just felt like that was the reason why I was allowed to come back. And it sounds kind of nutty, but
And tonight, my guest on the channel is Mr. John Stephen Swigert. He had a near-death experience. He had what's known as a Takotsubo cardiac arrest, Takotsubo syndrome. He had also a stroke, fell down the stairs, broke his neck. Now, Swigert actually stands for creativity, loyalty, and strength. And this is something that Steve definitely does not lack in any sense of the word. Let's just jump right into it. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself? And thanks for being here, by the way.
Hey, I appreciate it, John.
This is also known as broken heart syndrome, which is usually comes, having already experienced something traumatic or emotional in your life. Why don't you take us back to sort of like what was going on at the time, and then we'll jump into the experience.
I serve on the board of directors at a local theater, and I had been at a show on Friday evening that went into Saturday morning. I walked home 2 to 2.5 miles. So we're looking at about Saturday, 2:30 or 3 a.m. And it was about that time on Sunday that I ended up calling 911, knowing very clearly what was happening. I had some heart problems diagnosed previously. The only thing that got caught in the past was an enlarged heart at one point, which later returned to normal size before my event. And there was another time where my heart beat, and this is ridiculous, 240 beats per minute for 14 hours. Like this time, I knew I was a goner. I had resigned myself to this existence at that point. You can read it in some of my poetry and even some of my music. I knew this day was coming. Hope that if I could get help to try to remain calm. It's important to find an inner calm fast if possible, so that we're not chemically reacting and adding to the chaos and turmoil that you're suffering. And faith is indispensable there. But that leads into what was going on immediately preceding the event itself.
So where were you at this moment in time? You were at home, right?
Yes, in my bedroom, which at that time was upstairs. I've moved it to downstairs now. But I know when I picked up my phone to dial 911, it was nearly impossible. It looked like 8 phones in my hand, all overlapping each other. And I noticed that my finger, at least all of my fingers, I pointed my index finger out. I noticed that at least it went to all those numbers. And somehow I was able to dial, telling them, I don't want to go. Please make sure you bring the defibrillator in my house. I think the door's unlocked. I had not been feeling well at the theater on Friday into Saturday morning. I sat up in the office most of the time while the show was going on downstairs and had a terrible headache. And then when I walked home, I knew I was in worse shape. Anyhow, I was able to communicate to 911 to bring help. I don't have any idea how long it took them to respond.
At this point, you had already fallen down the stairs. I'm just trying to get the order here.
The falling down the stairs was the last thing I did while I was on the phone with 911.
Oh, okay.
I told them I'm going to go and make sure my door's unlocked, because I knew I'm so critical. I don't want a single second wasted, because I want to survive. And the quicker they get to me, if they have to smash my door down, plus I have dogs, I want to make sure they're secure after I'm leaving the home with them. And I'm positive the lady said, Mr. Swigert, please don't do that. And that's the last thing I remember. I'm just down the steps. That's the last thing I remember while I'm on the phone with them. My steps go straight down, probably 11 steps, and then make a right angle turn. Mm-hmm. So my house is a double brick house with plaster walls. And so when I went down the steps, I think my face just went slamming straight into the plaster wall. I think being crumpled down there in that part where the stairs turn, and when I got up, my neck was over like this, and this arm I couldn't move. I actually ended up picking this arm up like this and pushing it over and screaming to feel if blood and to see if any bones were protruding, but also like where, just trying to assess everything. But there comes a point where it's like, okay, I know my neck's broken. I'm positive. Knew that I couldn't believe that I was awake and that I could move, first of all. But I knew that my time was very short. And I mean, it sounds insane, but I sat with my behind down on the floor. And so I'm sitting in this position, and I tried my best to aim my neck part, like so I would hit it against the floor. And I did that 3 different times. And on the third time, that was the last, third time's a charm. And I truly thought that. It's crazy. This all might have happened over 20 or 30 seconds, maybe 15 seconds in reality, but it's amazing how much we can think in that little short period of time. I knew this is it. There's no way. And then if I do survive, I'm absolutely going to be paralyzed. So I already was in a delicate state. I have spinal stenosis throughout my whole spine. I have ankylosing spondylitis and spondylosis. I have slip discs in all 3 regions: lumbar, lower, thoracic, middle, cervical, neck parts of my spine. And I've broken a lumbar vertebrae in the past. So, I already had massive spinal cord impingement. It's a miracle still today, even before all this, that I was functional. And I've never told the doctors about that. There's no time to tell them all that stuff. You're trying to process what's happening. After the 3rd time hitting my neck on the floor, in their hardwood floors, remember going to a place that was just completely pitch black. And the only thing that I thought was, how do I get back to the woman that I was in love with at that time and my dogs, of all things. And the next thing I remember is waking up to CPR, and I was very combative, but probably only, seconds of really combative. I was gone and revived by CPR then. And I completely believe that I died on the way to the hospital, because I remember flying over the ambulance and knowing that my body was inside, and knowing that I was still not in my vessel any longer and in soul form. And the crazy thing was, I knew I was going to make it back already at that point too, which is kind of a strange knowingness to have.
You had mentioned that you were in like a pitch black, commonly referred to as the void, which is just blackness, not void of love, not void of other spirits, but just total, a large, vast blackness. Is that sort of like what you think you experienced?
Yeah, 100%. If you've ever been camping out in the mountains and there's cloud cover and there's no, it's when the moon cycles at its least amount of illumination, and you really can't see the hand in front of you. It's beyond that, because you know that you're in soul form, and at that point, it's only the self that's there in your own thoughts, from my experience. And I was only there as long as I could think what I just said earlier. How do I get back? I have no idea how long I'm physically lying on my floor dead before they get here to start administering CPR after they assess everything. And I know a police officer came first to the house. Just happened to meet him down at the theater one night on an occasion after all of this stuff happened to me, and his eyes were huge. Like he knew it was me, but he couldn't believe it was me. Really something. And of course, I thank them. Can't thank the medical professionals, the police, everybody involved. I'll never be able to thank them enough.
And in this void, just going back to the void for a second, I gather you didn't experience any pain. Like, what did it feel like while you were in there? at the
No
time?
pain there, but certainly in pain when I came to from CPR, the worst
Right.
pain ever. First was on the floor, then CPR, which I'm sure had to be in my house, and then waking up and screaming and being combative. And I was out almost as quick as I woke up. This pain with my neck was just unbelievable. It was terrible. And the next thing I remember is I feel like I'm above my body while I'm on the it seemed like they had one of those ambulance beds that was like electric or something like that, big heavy thing. But my house has got a very narrow entrance, and I swear we were going by the house down the steps, and like one of the guys fell over, or they almost knocked me in the bed over, or something like that. And maybe that's not what happened, but it sure seems like I remember that.
Mhm.
And then the next moment, we're about a mile. Like, I don't remember anything after that. The next moment, I remember we're about, like, from my house to the hospital's probably no more than 2.5 miles. And about halfway there, a mile and a quarter mile, somewhere in that range, I remember just like I'm out of body and
Mhm.
flying above the ambulance, looking down, knowing I'm gone inside of the ambulance. Of course,
Okay. Right.
I knew it as soon as I woke up from CPR. I knew why I was aspirating. I knew that help was there.
Mhm.
That was a great relief in a certain aspect. Even out of body, it's kind of
Mhm.
hard to believe, but so much is being processed. Uh, during this whole time. But that's the next moment I believe I remember is above the ambulance. Well, I definitely felt like I went through a wormhole throat. Uh, you often hear people, oh, they see the light and going through the tunnel.
Mhm.
I love physics. To me, it was a wormhole throat. I mean,
Okay.
I'm not saying those folks are wrong. I think they're 100% right. I definitely saw I didn't see a light at that point. I saw like a kaleidoscope of different color lights, but they're not like the color here. Uh, just every range of color, luminescing, but spinning. I don't want to say it was all spinning in one direction either. It was like a
Okay.
conglomeration and everything doing its own. It's chaos of light,
Mhm.
and then through a tunnel, and you're going through a tunnel. But everything I've read about physics and black holes, et cetera, it seems so much like I'm living through like what happens after the event horizon and stuff. And
Mhm.
it felt like that. I didn't have a life review. That's another thing that a lot of people will talk about. And I felt like, you know, when I first went to the place of blackness and then died, I was brought back by CPR, but apparently I died again at the hospital because I remember being defibrillated 3 times. I felt like the only thing I wanted was to return to the woman that I loved and my dogs who show me unconditional love. The whole thing was love. In my
Mhm.
first moment in death, the only thought was love. And I just
Crazy.
felt like that was the reason why I was allowed to come back. And it sounds kind of nutty, but there was a point at that same time, like I didn't hear anything. I just had a knowingness that I was going to come back. And I
Mhm.
also wanted to go as deep as I could into the experience of death too, which is kind of strange. But I've read about some of this stuff when I was young, before this ever happened to me. But I grew up with severe asthma and almost died a few times. But
Mhm.
none of this kind of stuff happened to me. Uh, and so I remember being defibrillated at the hospital. And so obviously I'm gone again. So I've been revived by CPR. I'm back. I'm gone again. And the next thing I remember after, so I felt like I didn't have a life review because my only thought was love.
Okay.
And, that's just my own instinct or feeling about that. And
Mhm.
uh, the next thing I remember is it felt like I was at the edge of a meadow. I like to hike. And there was a beautiful field of just incredible flowers of all different colors, and the perfect breeze, the perfect temperature, music, like the celestial music's hard to even explain. It was almost like every presence had a contributing tone, the way our body or our spirit resonates.
Yeah.
And it's not like the earthly music that we make. It was just something that's truly indescribable, but it was the most beautiful music I've ever heard. Now, the person that I was in love with, that I wanted to come back for, was with me there. She's still alive. We both broke our necks. She can walk, I can walk. It's kind of crazy stuff. And we ended up spending a year and a half together. And we're still friends, and we go our separate ways at times, and we've done that. And I'm so thankful for the time that we shared, and we needed each other.
Mm-hmm.
And she was there at this meadow with me, and there was a castle in the distance, and I knew that was our home for eternity. And sorry, getting emotional, can't help it.
Oh,
Promised
okay,
I wouldn't.
please.
But that was one of the most beautiful things, because I've been divorced twice, and I sure feel like I've had my heart ripped out quite a few times at 54, and I don't want to quit. I want to share my life with somebody. And there came a peace, because I know what's waiting, and
Mm-hmm.
that castle's whatever we make it here. And I know what's there. And I remember there came another place, there came another place where I knew I was in the presence of all that came before me and remained to stay. I totally believe people cycle back spiritually, the spirit cycles back, or can ascend and stay.
Mm-hmm.
It depends. We each have our own journey. And I know that at that place, we were nothing physical. We were just presences. And we all had one thought and one mind, but we also had ourselves as we know ourselves today. And the amazing thing there was everything we all would desire would appear, and you would not know it different than not being physical. It seemed physical. But if there was a moment, it was like shown to me. If there was just one dissension, it could have been a billion, it could have been three souls. If there was one notion that went against what everybody wanted, everything disappeared. That was, again, quite fascinating in itself. These things are so very real. I know they sound like pure lunacy to a person that's not experienced having a near-death experience. They're more real than real itself that we know each day through this journey of life on Earth. If I ever had doubt that I was coming back, it was just a very quick moment before there, because I didn't know how to step back into my body. And it sounds silly, but I thought to myself, well, I've always had the gift of gab, and I'll just start talking. And as soon as I started talking, I was returned. And, I have listened to other people's NDEs and everything. I didn't go slamming back into my body. It wasn't, it was just a seamless transition. I was just back to, I'm laying supine. So I'm, back down on the bed, face up.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a nurse at the left of my left side, but they're waiting for the doctor to call my death. And so at that moment where I said, well, I'm good at talking, I'll just talk, I said, well, I guess I died. And I said it relatively quiet because I didn't want to scare them. But the nurse, she jumped and, oh my God, what do we do? And the doctor's shocked, but not as shocked as her. He says, well, I guess we have a patient again.
So I know, like you do, that, our consciousness, our soul, our true essence of being is not part of our body. I know that without a doubt. There's no doubt about that for sure.
No, I'm glad that you know and appreciate that. And
Yeah.
I hope through faith that others will learn that. And I have faith that that's part of their journey.
Or did you feel or sense any other presence during your near-death experience?
Well, I told my sister, my eldest sister, she asked me, can you tell me anything about it? And I said, well, I was with the great council in the sky, and I have no idea where that came from, other than that I knew that's where I was,
Mhm.
but I didn't see them. This was, again, I knew I was in their presence. There was no doubt about it. And the first thing that was really, really clear to me is, wow, we are so naked at the throne of God. They know me better than I know myself. If you could imagine a drone that would follow you throughout all of life and knew everything about your inner thoughts and all of your actions, that's how naked you are. And I hope people think about that, because it's a
Yeah.
fact. And it was the Akashic record mentions things like this. And I don't want to get off on some different subjects, but there's some amazing things to study today. And those things don't emanate from nothingness. They have come forth through our own evolution and thinking and sharing experience. And just because we might not be able to put solid ground scientifically under all of it doesn't mean disregard it all. Everything that's thought to be lunacy, not everything, many things are thought to be lunacy and then are accepted as absolute paradigm shifts in science. And all I think is to be open-minded to those things which you cannot prove. And that's what being open-minded is really about. There's so much more to learn if our mind is pried open in that regard. If we know something absolutely can't happen, we will not see it happening. We won't experience it happening because we'll be in denial. And then when we're in denial, we miss a good chunk of life. But it's part of our makeup also. I knew I was going back at that moment. I wanted to go as deep as I could because I knew I was going to go back to life. So I wanted to see what is there. We're all fascinated with where we came from. It felt like when I went through the wormhole throat, I saw from the beginning of probably mankind all the way to at least my point up into heaven. But it was like I started off, okay, slow motion was already like nearing light speed, it felt like. And then the rest of it was like so fast, I can't recall it. But there's definitely this, everything when you're there. There's an all-knowingness. I do remember flying over the pyramids when they were being built, the Great Pyramid in particular. And
Wow.
again, this was like super, super fast, but I remember people working. I remember like pulleys and ropes, and I remember animals being utilized to pull with physical labor too. No aliens, no nothing like that. People working together with a common goal, and really about faith again. And then the rest of it was like, and then I'm, through the wormhole throat, and it's calm. When you're going through the wormhole throat, you're going forward. I don't think I fell into the place of blackness, but you feel like that. If you didn't actually feel like you were falling, when you're there, you feel like you fell to it, if that makes sense. Like I saw all of recorded history or something ridiculous. And I feel like all that stuff's up here. I can't unscramble it. I'm not supposed to yet or something. It is so ridiculously fast how quick you will see some of this stuff. You can't possibly process it. And but there, that you have this all-knowingness, like, oh wow, all these questions are answered. I've heard this said to me incorrectly many times. A lot of people say they could see around them 360 degrees. That leaves you limited to like a circle around your eyes. If peripheral stops at about 180, 160, somewhere in that degrees, spherical would be 360. This was like being able to see in every direction as if you could see spherically around yourself, but you could focus where you would want to. So I knew at that point, flying through the wormhole throat, I was that way. The interesting thing is that at the Meadow, I was in body form, but light body. It's not a physical body still. It's a perfect body of energetic light is what it felt like. Absolutely no pain, absolutely no fear, absolutely no stress. There's parts of the adventure, the journey, that are perfect bliss, but at the Meadow, it just felt it was bliss. I mean, it felt like, wow, it is truly awe-inspiring. There's no words to do justice to any of this. That's the most difficult thing, is to try to relay things that are so foreign to us from what we're used to. It feels like I remember less than 1% of what I experienced, and I remember a lot compared to other folks that have NDEs. I'll tell you, I talked to one of my friends who was very interested about what happened to me from the point of view as you are interested. Some people want to hear about it, but other people are very into studying and meeting people that go through these kind of experiences. And he was one of those folks, and I couldn't articulate myself to him, and I felt like a lunatic. And, it's been very hard to just be able to put any of this into words. I'm thankful that the hospital that treated me had a patient portal so that I could look at all of my records there from this event and to see how well things were documented. The other thing is, and this is amazing, I don't want to sound like I'm taking credit from the medical professionals. They carried me through death and did everything humanly possible to bring me back to life. And they had to come to a place, or they came to a place where they had to stop trying to resuscitate me. And they were only waiting for a unbiased and objective doctor who was not on the medical team to come in and call my death. And I remember that discussion as I'm above my body. I remember them, well, we need to get so-and-so. And I knew it was very clear to me that this was somebody that was not on the treating team of professionals by my side, carrying me through death. So after the event, I went home, and I went home in 5 days for one thing, which is kind of ridiculous. I took my neck brace off in 2 days. I used my shower chair one time. I had a nurse come to my house the first 2 days. She said, well, you don't need me anymore. I'm going to sign off on you. My neurosurgeon was very upset with me that I wasn't wearing my neck brace, but it was restricting my breathing, and my heart had not healed much at that point. The greatest question of all time is always, what is the meaning of life? It's to evolve the soul. We are not evolved souls here. We are each evolved to a different point, but we are not yet evolved or ascended souls yet. And God's not done with us because we have work to do on ourselves. And the faith part of that, to me, is an action of lifting those around you. And I was carried by those medical professionals, by those law enforcement, whoever showed up at my house, they carried me through death back to life. Even though the best medical science in the world left me dead and supine on a bed, faith is what brought me back. It's beautiful because there's no question about it. When you are there, you are home, capital H-O-M-E, not lowercase h-O-M-E, but home, heaven, because we fight and we hurt one another. And there's truly no need for it. The reason we do all those things is because we lack faith. You
Yeah.
know, I'm not starved a day in my life. We have enough food to feed the world many times over just by the production of our country alone. Yet there's starvation. And on we could go like this. And, you know, when we talk about the sins, we're surrounded by it. Many people think maybe this is the opposite of heaven. I don't want to say that. Although I've been molested growing up, I was by the Pentagon on September the 11th. I've gone through some crazy things. I had to testify against a friend who murdered his father, who was my former boss that I was going to go back to work for.
Goodness.
I've had to go through some really tough things. My father was shot in the head in Vietnam and survived, but I remember that from the very earliest moments of my life. You know, this touch and go of life. I've always felt death on my heels, but you know, we all know the presence when we're there. And the intuition within ourselves, we all have this voice inside. It's okay to listen to it.
Definitely.
You know, a lot of people are out of tune. I hope everybody has that
We
voice
should
inside.
be listening to it.
Exactly. To like hold on, every storm passes, and pray a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't want to leave my family, you know. I'm just thankful. I hear a lot of people talk about their near-death experience and they didn't want to come back. And I understand that. But I'm glad that I am back. I'm very thankful I'm back. I've always been appreciative of life, but I've never been so appreciative of life. It's an incredible journey to share. And I have met, excuse me, so many wonderful people along the way that have helped me, you know. They build faith in others by giving of themselves, not just to earn money, but to help people through their lives, to lift people through their lives.
At any point in time before you left, within those 5 days, did you ever discuss this with the doctors or the nurses about what you saw when you were out of body with them?
Most of them don't want to hear it. I kind of tried. But one thing that was very strange when I came back, I could see my thoughts. Almost like looking at a TV, but they're kind of projected out in front of you. And I don't want to say that they're projected, but they're just, you know, they're kind of overlapping reality. You know the difference of what's what.
Yeah.
But I truly could see, like, you know, it's like abstract thinking times a million. They didn't want to hear about that stuff. Like, you know, and I did tell them, you know, when I went through the surgery, I remember an awful lot through that too, and I'm not supposed to have. I told them when they were hooking. I told them when they plugged them in, and I told them when the device was uploading, like, you know, oh, it's linked up, and now what is it doing, a software upgrade? And it was like, like, how can you possibly? And I told them, I said, well, you know how the universe has radiation background? I said, well, I'm just listening to my body. And anytime there's something that's like just different from the background noise, I know it's something you did electronically. But one quick last thing, I really wanted to meet all of the people that helped me. First of all, I want to thank them all for carrying me through this process at the time of my event and after. You know, if everybody was good to each other today, we could wake up tomorrow without any problems.
Well put. Steve, I want to, I mean, you and I have been talking for a little while now, for a few weeks. I feel like I've gotten to know you quite a bit, and you're such a loving person. And
Thanks,
I really mean that. You're a very loving person, and you have a lot to give. And I hope that you just keep spreading that love. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for you to be, you know, for your being here and sharing this and being so generous to share these details with everybody. It means a lot. It really means a lot to me. Thank you so much for being on the show.
I really appreciate what you're doing. It's great work. It's important work. And these things need to be documented.
I totally agree with you. That's why I'm doing it. And I really appreciate everyone coming on here and sharing their stories. I know this is like something people don't realize how personal this is. You're putting yourself out there, and I think it's for the greater good. And I cannot thank you enough for coming on here and talking to me about this stuff.
Absolutely. God bless you, man.
God bless you too, man. Don't go anywhere. All right.